Here's why I love this story and this encounter with Jesus and Peter. Think about this. Here's Peter, and his first encounter with Jesus the Christ is like, wow, it's miraculous. And even though, now watch this because this helps us, and even though Peter responded in the right way and made the right choice later on, Peter still betrayed Jesus. You see, this gives me hope that I too can become a disciple. Peter was always trying to set Jesus straight. This gives me hope that I can become a disciple. Jesus was always trying to tell Peter, or Peter was always trying to tell Jesus, God, here are the way things are. Peter was always trying to influence Jesus with his plans rather than God's plans. And I'm guilty of that, aren't you? Church, this gives us hope that we too can become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. Peter was always arguing with Jesus. I've had my share of arguments with Jesus, haven't you? But Peter still became a disciple of Jesus Christ, which means we too, as bullheaded and boneheaded and as rebellious as we can be, we too can become disciples of Jesus Christ. These 6 words of acquiescence that Peter spoke, because you say so, I will, they didn't make him a saint. Not at all, because remember, he still ran away when Jesus was arrested. And when Jesus asked him to walk out on the water, he still sank. You see, the call to discipleship isn't about perfection in our actions, because we're always going to blow it. And it isn't about keeping our opinions to ourselves with God. God welcomes any testy conversation we might have with Him. Listen, the call to discipleship, more than anything else, is a relinquishing of our will. And it's not a one-time thing. It's a decision to pursue this idea of acquiescence as a habit. It's about coming to a place where we say, whatever, with a smile on our face. Not, whatever. No. It's whatever, with a smile on our face. And we say this because we know from experience that our plans are mundane. And we say, God, I know the plans you have for me are miraculous. So I understand that I have a choice in this matter. So as an act of my free will, in acquiescence, I align myself to you. I align my will to yours. And without any attitude, I say to you, God, whatever. And I know from time to time, God, I'm going to say, whatever. But I'm going to come back to this place, this mindset, where with a smile on my face, I say to you, whatever. Because you say so, I will. Jesus, my heart has said an unreserved yes to you. There are no known no's in my life to you. I accept the call of discipleship, and whatever you ask me to do, because you say so, I will do it. Because you say so, I will. Church, here's the thing. I've been a pastor for almost 8 years now, and I've been in the ministry for over 30 years. And here's what I know from experience. The happiest people in the world are those Christians who have come to a place in their life where they, like Peter, have said to Jesus, because you say so, I will. Those are the happiest people in my experience that I've ever met. But the flip side of this coin is also true. The most unhappy people I have ever met are those who say, well, Jesus, I believe in you. I'm happy to give you my sin. I'm going to unload that. I like that idea. But I'm not sure I can become your disciple because I just don't think there's any way that I can live a lifestyle of acquiescence. Now listen, if that's you, I'm not speaking down to you at all. Believe me, I get you more than you probably even know. I totally understand this mindset because I struggle with it. And until 13 years ago, this is exactly how I lived my Christian life. Jesus was my Savior, but not my Lord. I was a believer, but not a follower. At least not someone who was pursuing becoming a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ. I had given Jesus my sin, but I really hadn't given him myself. I was a Christian, but I was not a disciple. Hey, listen. If that's you today, I totally understand you. But if that's you today, maybe today is your day. Maybe today can be the day where you get alone with God and you take this step of courage and say, like Peter, well, Lord, you know I don't get this. I don't understand this. And you know I have my own plans. I've told you about them a million times. And part of me doesn't even want to do this, but my heart is strangely warmed by the call of discipleship. So I'm going to, as an act of my will, I'm going to acquiesce. I'm going to say to you, I surrender to you, Jesus. And I'm going to say, because you say so, I will. Because you say so, I will. Do you know what gives people the courage to do this? Do you know what causes people to make this choice? Here it is. Our plans are mundane, but God's plans are miraculous. However, we get to choose between the two. In acquiescence, disciples choose God's plan, and here it is. Because they know who they are, and they know who Jesus is. After Jesus asked Peter to get out into the deep water and to let his nets down for a catch, and after Peter, in acquiescence, does what Jesus has asked him to do, and the result is that they catch 2 boatloads of fish. After all of this has happened, and I want you to put yourself in this scenario, this scene, Peter is completely undone. He is beside himself, and I totally relate to Peter because he was an emotional guy, and I tend to be an emotional guy, and all of this is just too much for him to handle. He begins to think about his mundane life, and he thinks about this wow miracle that he has just experienced, and he is completely overwhelmed. He is wrecked, and so he falls at Jesus' feet. And here's why. Listen. Because for the first time in Peter's life, he truly realizes who he is and who Jesus is. Check it out. Verse 8. Don't miss this. My friends, this is what causes people to choose a lifestyle of acquiescence. Verse 8. When Simon Peter saw this, when he saw that Jesus could change the natural order of things, when he saw 2 boats so filled with fish that they were sinking, Peter fell at Jesus' knees and he said, check it out, "Go away from me, Lord. Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man. I don't know why I ever thought I could call the shots in my own life. I don't know why I ever thought I could be the maker of my own destiny. I don't know why I ever thought I could come up with the perfect plans for my life, because I am a sinful man. And so the plans for my life are strained through the grid of my sinful nature, which means they are always going to fall short of what they should be and what you intend for them to be." Don't you relate to this scene? I totally get this scene. My friends, this truth is what causes people to say, "Okay, God, I know who I really am. Sinner. Sinner." You know, sometimes people talk to me, "Well, Pastor, I'm a sinner." Now, not you. And I'll say, "Hey, listen, I have no problem with saying I'm a sinner saved by grace. I have no problem saying I'm a sinner saved by grace." Don't resist that. Resisting that is dangerous ground. I have no problem saying I'm a sinner saved by grace. But think about this. This is the truth that causes people to say, "Okay, God, I know who I am. I am a sinful man. Peter recognized who he was, so he said, I'm not going to hold on to my plans, because the best plans I can come up with are still straying through the grid of total depravity. We believe in that. And through sinful nature, our inclination towards sin. So today, Peter says right here, right now, in acquiescence, I choose your plan. And whatever it is, even if I don't like it, because of who I am and who I know myself to be, I am going to respond and say, because you say so, I will. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man. For he and all of his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And I submit to you that the basis for their astonishment wasn't the 2 boatloads of fish, but this man named Jesus who could make something like this happen. And when Peter had this experience, you know what happened? He acquiesced. Because he knew who he was. He knew who he was. And here's something I've never noticed before in this story until I was studying this week. This story from Luke chapter 5 is the first encounter that Peter and Jesus have. And what I find so amazing and so compelling in this story is that the first word that Peter ever spoke to Jesus is found here in chapter 5. And this is right after Jesus has asked Peter to push out to the deep water and let down the nets. Now, a human response would have been, whatever, right, you gotta be kidding. You can't be serious. We've been out there all night. Nothing. But notice the very first word Peter uses to address Jesus. Man, this is, when I read this the other day and I finally got it, I kind of had a weeping session. In verse 5, Peter answered, first word to Jesus he ever spoke, Master. That should rattle our cage big time. Master. He didn't say Jesus or teacher. He said Master. This is huge for us. There is something so powerful and so wonderful about the way that Peter addresses Jesus here, because he addresses Jesus with a word and a title that denotes an attitude of acquiescence. And I am not trying to paint Peter into something that he wasn't, because he was the most bullheaded, boneheaded of all the disciples. But here in his first encounter with Jesus, he gets it right. In fact, he gets it perfect, because he gives Jesus the title that he truly deserves in our life. He says, Master. Master. And if he's the master, how can we respond any other way than to say, because you say so, I will. You're the master, and because you're the master, because you say so, I will.